The following was originally aired on Moody Radio Cleveland.
We've had her on twice last week already as we get launched into a series on the Enneagram. She's back. She's program director of the Caritas Center for Christian Formation, also retired Moody professor and a counselor, author, speaker. Welcome back, Nancy Kane.
Good morning to you.
Now, I thought it'd be really fun, as often as we can, as we go through the Enneagram numbers, to make sure that somebody as part of our conversation is one of those numbers. And wouldn't
That's a great idea.
You like that idea?
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, good. Can we focus a lot on the sin parts? Can we do that?
That's so rude.
Well, I'm...
We need to go.
As long as we do it with you, too. You don't get a pass.
Well,
just
we'll
'cause you're-
see. I mean, we may run out of time, but so just to make sure we start with a bang, we brought in our station manager because he's the number you're covering today. Josh Villa, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Wow, my
Nancy,
Wowie.
thank you for being here. I'm ready for my public dismantling. Just so you know, I've already shut off my notifications on my phone. My wife got up especially early, and we've been married for 29 years. Hopefully by September. So.
Mimi will have to come on later when we get to her type.
Yeah. Oh, that would be fun.
So now, Nancy, give us just a quick overview again. What is the Enneagram before we dismantle Josh?
So the Enneagram is a personal typing of what your propensity is in terms of what was born out of pain from your childhood that you developed a way of living, certain decisions you made about life, as well as coping skills. The backdrop is learning to grow into the healthiness part of your number and also allowing God to redeem the unhealthiness part. So each number has strengths, but each number has weaknesses or sin patterns that go with it.
Well, this will be fun.
Yeah.
Again, here's our boss. He's the number for today. He says that he's an 8, and that's what you want to cover. So, Nancy, tell us about an 8/Josh.
So I start with the 8s because the 8s are the natural leaders. If you lined up all the types in a line across, across the board, 8s above and beyond would stand apart from the rest of the numbers. They're confident. They're sure of themselves. They bring a certain power into conversations in the room.
And we're done. Thank you, Nancy.
Josh is enjoying this.
It was great having you on the show, Nancy.
There's more. There's more.
Oh, I know.
But that strength and that power comes from generally a childhood wound in which they didn't feel safe, or they had a parent that basically told them to toughen up early on. And so they become
That's
naturally
not crying, that's laughing. Sorry.
they become self-reliant and have a high need for control.
So to what extent is that resonating with you, Josh?
Nancy, did I ever give you the password to my email?
My texts.
Oh, my texts?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, it's frighteningly on target.
What about the toughening up part? Can I ask you about that live on the radio? Sorry, but I just did.
What do you mean the toughening
Well,
up
you already
part?
did, so.
Like, were you told as a kid a lot, just kind of toughen up?
It was never explicit. It was always implicit.
Nancy,
Yeah.
what do you make of that?
Yeah, because as children, 8s generally saw life as hard. And so there was really no option other than a survival and to be tough. So sometimes the message came from the parents. Sometimes it was just circumstances. They looked around and said, no one's there to really protect me. I have to survive.
And that is exactly my situation growing up to a T. As a child, being the middle child, I grew up an older brother 4 years older, 4.5 years older, and a younger brother 4.5 years younger. So the younger brother got all the attention and got everything he needed because he's the baby. The older one was out on his own, carving his way through the world. And I'm sitting there going, so what do I do?
Right. And so, and without a parent to really guide you through, it then became, how do I survive?
Yeah.
Now, Nancy, for those listening to this, it could be like, wow, is Nancy and the Enneagram just blaming parents for everybody's problems? Is that what you're doing?
No, but every parent loves imperfectly, and as well as every parent can't control the experiences of their children. You can have a great parent, but then the child goes to school and they're bullied every day, or they perceive something in the environment that the parents don't know about that's painful. So it's not as simple as blaming the parent. It's much more complicated than that. That the child, on some level, for whatever reason, saw the world as being hard.
But
as being
Nancy, my parents were perfect. They were pastors for 35 years. They got it right every single day.
Yeah, well, that's the beginning of the journey to recognizing that you're
I thought you were going to say a counseling session. Yes.
Both.
Yeah.
Well, but Nancy, the phrase you used that every parent loves imperfectly, I think is a powerful and gentle way to say it, but it's true, right? We need to confront that as believers.
Yes, and that's really I was saying that in jest, but that's the beginning of coming into our story and understanding what God wants to redeem, is that we have to face first our childhood, what was wonderful, but what was not, what was sinful, what was painful, what was where our parents meant well, but they dropped the ball. And I can tell where someone is in their story. I know you're jesting there, Josh, but where someone will say, "Oh, my family life was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
They were the perfect family." And I think you haven't really begun your journey yet, because we have to face what was given to us, so that we can be the next generation of redeemed people carrying on God's story in us.
What good would it do, Josh, to dig up old wounds? I mean, because a lot of people resist it for that. They're like, why would I want to do that in my life?
Because you're being driven by your wounds. Our wounds are the place that we decide in our childhood how to cope, but then in adulthood they become areas where we're not allowing God and trusting Him to do the work that only He can do.
Wow.
So those have to be addressed.
Yeah, this is the key thing about what you all teach, what you and Ray teach at the Caritas Center. It's that, unless we can become psychologically well and really address some of these wounds we have a block in our ability to get close to Jesus, yeah?
Exactly, and you cannot be spiritually mature and be psychologically unhealthy.
Wait, say that again, please.
You cannot be spiritually mature and psychologically unhealthy.
Why?
Because the two go hand in hand. So if you've ever met a leader who is spitting out verses, but he's narcissistic, he hurts people, but he knows the Bible. Well, he's not spiritually mature. Spiritual maturity is always contingent on our emotional maturity.
And we're in the midst of a series about the Enneagram and various aspects of it and how it can help draw you closer to Jesus. It's a tool to use as you get closer to Jesus. We're looking at number 8 and a little bit of number 9 today on the chart of that, so go look it up online if you want to. But our station manager, Josh, is an 8. So just give us a quick recap, Nancy, again, of the strengths and weaknesses of an 8.
So the strengths are that this is a natural leader, and they just automatically command their presence in the room and have the confidence to be able to take people or take a group where they need to go. They have a high, they can smell a lack of integrity a mile away. They will fight for justice, and they're. Yeah.
No, that's you, Josh. It sounds just like you.
You're just looking right at me. This is uncomfortable.
Sorry. Those are good qualities.
These are wonderful qualities. They're also, they're the best person to have when someone is downtrodden or vulnerable or in hardship, because they will fight to the end for people that are, life has hit them hard. The weakness is that they have a high need for control. They can, in relationships in intimacy, they can have trouble with vulnerability. They also can be the bully, that they're the person in the room, and I will tell this on our retreats. The 8s in the room, I will tell them, you're not to break the rules.
But it's so fun. Sorry.
Because they'll naturally want to break the rules and not conform to feel their own continued sense of personal power. Where they need to go is learning back up for a second. Their vice is lust, which can be translated as it doesn't necessarily mean sexual lust, but it can be an addiction to intensity. So colleague of mine is an 8, and he bungee jumping, riding motorcycles in the Colorado at high intensity. When he's interacting, it's intense and it's profound and it's in your face. And
Does that resonate with you, Josh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but one more thing. It doesn't show anywhere on here the trait regularly brings donuts to the team. I don't see that on here.
Maybe we're the oppressed and you're helping us.
Is that my wing?
Yeah, that's your wing.
High cholesterol food?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, but the 9s in healthiness, 8s in the healthiness go to a 2, meaning they learn how to let go of the need for power and then help people. But they're using their confidence to be able to move into those places to help other people, and they no longer need to be in control as such. They're finding satisfaction in bringing, again, all of their problem-solving skills, all the ways that they've learned to deal with life to help people that don't have that benefit.
So now, Nancy, how would somebody who's an 8, like for example, our friend Josh, how do they take this information and use it to grow closer to Jesus in their relationship with him?
The
2 words for an 8 that they need to learn is mercy and vulnerability.
Not
really,
calm down? I was thinking calm down.
Yeah.
Mimi would tell you that.
Yeah, mercy, vulnerability, and submission, because it's the last thing they want to do.
Wow.
And so, but as they do that,
You need to lie down.
But as they learn mercy, what is the heart of God? He's about mercy. And so it's learning how he has given you mercy and shown you mercy that you in turn are being asked to show that to other people, which means that in your flesh, you're going to fight that because you want justice. And for an 8, you need to let it go and know that there's some things that only God can take care of, and it's not up to you.
You know what's amazing to me when I am with someone who sees their number for the first time, or when I went through this, and it goes to what Daria mentioned to us in the break, and it's like, how could this be so accurate with only 9 numbers? You know what I mean? Like when someone's an 8 and they hear this, they go, "Wow, that's me." How does this even come together like that, Nancy?
It's a good question. I think that because it's pulling from the virtues and vices, it really goes to the propensity of our souls in terms of where we sin. But then as the virtues and vices play out, is you can have a certain sin pattern, but you also, if you choose to allow Christ to change you, you'll go to that virtue, as well as it combines the truth about psychological personalities. What, again, as I've said before, I like about this is that all of them are what we should become. So we don't stop at the 8. We move to the 9. We look at this in light of which numbers do we not relate well to, and how is God inviting us to become that in our own soul.
Nancy, so what would you tell me a healthy Josh would look like? A good amount of 8 with even more 2, a good amount of 2 with some 8, blended equally, all 8, no 2, all 2, no 8. Take the 2, add them together, I'm a 10. I'm off the record. I'm off the chart. I like that.
Yeah, that's the ultimate of the numbers, that you can become the 10.
I'm coining that new one.
I'm an 11, by the way, but just put that there.
No, it's not so much that you become a fully 2. It's that you have you've done the work of letting go of your need for control. And that also the deeper part of this is 8s, because of their emotional intensity, because of their pattern of wanting to fight versus submit, they can get themselves into situations where they then feel bad about it later. They feel bad about their...
I'm sorry.
You felt that before, Josh?
Ouch!
Yeah, no, I think these things are so helpful because all of us have these.
Well, you guys have seen that. Let's be real. Let's be honest.
Sure.
You guys have seen that here in the office with me. You guys have seen that where
Sure.
Something happens, I say something, I act some way, I react some way, and I'm immediately, I would like to think that I have the wherewithal emotionally to come back to you and say, hey, you know what, I blew it.
Well, and you totally do.
I would hope that I would, but that's so accurate, Nancy. Now, one thing I did want to point out, one of the documents does talk about famous examples. Just for Brian, I mean, Martin Luther King is there.
As an 8?
John Wayne is there as an 8. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean,
You
but
strike me as a John Wayne type.
Well, I park my horse outside.
well, but see, as Nancy has talked to us about, Jesus was an 8. He was also a 9 and a right, Nancy.
Well,
he was all of them, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, he went up against the Pharisees. I mean, Luke 9 where he just takes them to task and says, you think that you're all that, but you're really whitewashed sepulchers. I mean, that's an 8 posture.
All that minus a bag of chips. There you go.
Now, Josh, I'm so grateful you're willing to come in for this because I think for a lot of people, we need to have this exercise done in our lives. And I know you're an honest guy, so that really helps. We're all going to take turns, by the way, making sure that we're telling you what our numbers are as Nancy walks us through them. Go ahead, Josh.
One thing I just wanted to mention to Nancy. Nancy, when I first did this, I did it at a Christian event, and my eyes were just completely open. I mean, I was like, what in the world? And when I mentioned it to somebody from my church, they chastised me. They said, well, what are you doing going with mediums? And what are you doing going with esoteric things and new agey things? And, you know, and I sat there for a minute. After I got past the desire to want to fight, I thought, let me do some digging. Let me find out and do my research on this. What would have been my best response at that time?
I think that it's hard to talk with someone who has dualistic thinking. Something's either good or bad. It's almost childlike. Children see good people, bad people, but there's never a middle ground. I think that whatever leads us to the heart of God and leads us to becoming more like Christ is worthy of our attention. And
that's kind of what I feel, because I've done the DISC profile. I've done Strength Finders 2.0. I've done, I mean, you name it. I've been a fan of leadership and the biblical model of leadership ever since I can remember as a child. And all I've done with all of these things is try to find a better idea of how God created me. Now, people may say, well, you should go to the Bible. You should read your Bible. You pray. You want to know who you are, Josh? Pray. Ask God. I absolutely agree. But there are also other things that can be used as tools, correct?
Correct, as well as, and I think that I do it in this lecture, Brian, but when I introduce the virtues and vices as well as the Enneagram, I take people to Galatians 5 of the works of the flesh. And I think it's because we tend to deceive ourselves, I think it's easy to read the Bible and just check it off and say, haven't lied today, haven't fornicated today. I mean, go through the list and say, I'm doing pretty good. Whereas this is really inviting you to look into the mirror. And it's next to the, I just lost the name of it. The
Myers-Briggs, maybe?
No, it's the standard for diagnosing neurosis. But that's the only objective measure of personality tests out there. And that just is pure psychological. It doesn't really get into, again, the sin patterns. And this one, if you really want to grow, you're going to have to look at yourself pretty squarely in the mirror and say, okay, like with the 8, what do I do with this intensity of lust
but
that I'm
Nancy,
driven?
It's so much easier and more fun to look out the window and scream at everybody than look in the mirror and go, what's wrong with me?
And I think it goes to the bigger question that Ray and I had a conversation with someone yesterday, a pastor. What do you really want? If you want to be comfortable, you have every opportunity in your life to do that. But if you really want to become like Jesus, if you really want to see the kingdom of God go forward through your life, then it's going to require work, and it's going to require looking in the mirror and saying, Lord, show me myself, because I am the problem to the world.
Mm. Again, Nancy Kane is the program director for the Caritas Center for Christian Formation. Josh is clapping slowly for you. If you want more information, go to thecaritascenter.com, caritascenter.com. They have a brand new spiritual formation course. It's a 2-year course where there's some retreats once a quarter, basically, in the Chicagoland area. I'm in the midst of doing this. I highly encourage you to check it out. Go to thecaritascenter.com so you can go apply right now. And we'll continue this series looking at the Enneagram. There's plenty of free assessments out there. Nancy, safe to assume we'll go to 9 next week. Is that right?
Sounds great.
Thanks again for your time today, sister.
The preceding audio was originally aired on Moody Radio Cleveland. You can listen live at 103.3 FM in the greater Cleveland area, or download the Moody Radio app and search for Moody Radio Cleveland.